Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 868. 868. August the 16th, 2019. Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, certainly glad it's Friday. Man, it's been a hell of a week, has it not? Really has. Just things continue to accelerate on all fronts. And, you know, sometimes you have to kind of take a pause. You have to step back and look at everything that's going on, sort of reflect. I mean, can you guys remember back in the dark days of 2017 when, I mean, it seemed like everything was going against us? I mean, the coup was in full steam ahead. It didn't seem like we had anybody supporting the president to really do anything to help him. Not talking about all of us, but certainly it didn't seem like he had any loyalty anywhere around. We had Rodenstein. We had the whole 9 yards. It looked like it was just very dark, and it was tough to do videos back in those days sometimes because it seems like every day I had to come and, you know, although we would constantly find out new things about the coup and what was going on, it was being buried by the media. He had the special counsel going on. It just looked like we were up against such a so much that it just seemed like impossible to how we ever were going to overcome all this. But here we are now. You know, what, a year and a half ahead from where we were then, and now things look totally different. And again, if you look at where the world is compared to where we are today, because really this fight that we're involved in here, obviously it's a media war. It's a fight for hearts and minds. It's all these things. We have the Spygate thing. We're in the process of unraveling now. That's all flipped. The Mueller investigation is over. It was shown to be just another part of the coup, a gigantic hoax. We see all these things happening, but when you look around the world and you look at the real battle, the underlying battle behind all this is really the globalists. It's a war against globalism. It's been going on for a while now, and it's been an uphill climb. It's been really swimming against the current. But if you look where we are today, you look at the UK and what's going on there, you look at in Brazil with Bolsonaro, you look with Salvini in Italy, you look at what's going on in Austria and Poland, you just look around the world, the globalists are losing and we are winning. We just have to close the deal. I just want to make sure that we've now got them down, we've got them on the ground, we've got our foot on their throats, and I just hope to God that the powers that be do not say, okay, well, I think we've made our point. Let's just go ahead and let them up, and they'll be nice from now on. It's not going to work that way. This is a total fight to the death. This is a death match. We cannot take our foot off their throat. We must crush them, absolutely crush them. We must take down the deep state here and around the world. And again, if you look at things, you know, depending on your perspective, how you look at things, while it's still a daily struggle and it's still a fight every day, the fact of the matter is we are winning. We are winning. In the big picture, we are winning. Just hang in there. You know, it's hard sometimes for me, and I know a lot of you, to muster up the patience to continue to be an optimist and to continue to believe that we are going to get to the bottom of these globalist plots. But I do remain optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that we are going to do that and that there's a huge victory waiting just down the road. We just have to stay engaged, and we have to make sure that Attorney General Barr, who's really the man right now, he is really the man. He is the number one law and order man. He's going to decide how these things move forward. We have to make sure he understands that he has got a lot of support, and that he has to do the right thing, and he is going to get the necessary support if he makes the right call. And of course, if he doesn't, we're going to be up his ass and stretching out. We need to make that perfectly clear. The Attorney General needs to know where we stand on this thing. But anyway, yes, we are winning. We are winning. So with that in mind, let's move on to the news of the day. Well, so everyone, I'm sure by now, has seen the story. It came out yesterday with the autopsy on Jeffrey, and it appears that Jeffrey had broken bones in his neck. Specifically, the bone that they're focusing on is this bone right here, called the hyoid bone. And it appears, according to one expert interviewed by Fox News, who says that only 6 to 10%, 6 to 10% of people who have this broken bone here, only 6 to 10% of those occur in suicides. Only 6 to 10% of these broken hyoid bones happen during a suicide. 50%, at least 50% of the time, when you see this hyoid bone broken, that 50% of the time it's in homicides. Homicides. So, another damning piece of evidence in the Epstein saga. And when you look at all the problems, I find it nearly impossible to believe that it was simply coincidence, that all these things simply happened. And also we're learning now that the last words that Epstein said to his lawyers was, "I'll see you on Sunday." He had two things going for him, and he was pretty happy about it. He thought that he had a good shot at winning his case in court for double jeopardy. And there's a lot of legal scholars who said, yeah, he had at least a 50-50 chance of winning the case on a double jeopardy. But he also was working with his lawyers, and they was prepared, if he lost the double jeopardy case, then he was certainly prepared to cut a deal, and he was looking at maybe giving up a lot of people in exchange for 5 years in a country club. So he was fairly optimistic, according to his attorneys. There's just a lot of things. There's just too many things there that don't add up. And more as the days and hours go by, and we see more and more evidence coming out and learn more every day, I become more convinced every day that if in fact it is Epstein and he is the person who was killed in that jail cell, that it was definitely a hit. And I am more and more convinced that Epstein it wasn't just he had ties to a lot of rich and famous and powerful people. Obviously that's the case, but I'm being more and more convinced that he was connected to some intelligence agencies. That's my feeling right now. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see in the next days or weeks to come that we don't find out that in fact he was in some way, I don't know how, but in some way he was some sort of an asset for some intelligence or maybe multiple intelligence agencies. I think eventually we're going to find that to be true. And I think that will open up an entirely new set of questions about how that hit could have gone down the way that it did. Now, we also have this Ghislaine Maxwell, who yesterday there was quite a few reports that she has been living up in Boston in this mansion up in the New England area. But now we have someone who snapped a photograph of her in Los Angeles. Recently, in Los Angeles, someone snapped a photo of her. She was at the outdoor eating area of an In-N-Out burger. In-N-Out. In-N-Out. That's right, the In-N-Out burger. And she was reading a book. And the book she was reading was titled The Book of Honor: The Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives. The Book of Honor: The Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives. And of course, this person snapped a photograph. And it's definitely her. Now, we know that Maxwell, we're learning that she was served with a subpoena back in 2009 as she was leaving a Clinton Global Initiative conference in New York. But she was never charged with a crime. Like I say, there's a lot more to learn here. There's too much shadowy stuff going on here. It reeks of some sort of intelligence stuff, if you know what I mean. Now, next we have Nellie Ohr. Nellie. Of course, Mark Meadows sent a criminal referral on Nellie Ohr months and months ago. I've seen no action taken on her yet. But it appears, and this is a name, the name they're about to hear is a name that's come up before. It's in my timeline. Nellie Ohr sent many emails to a DOJ official named Lisa Holton during the period of 2016, while she was being paid by Confusion GPS. And actually, even slightly beyond that time. Because Nellie said she quit working for Fusion GPS in 2016, October, after, at the end of October, she said, is when she quit working for Fusion GPS. But we have emails going to Lisa Holton from Nellie into November of 2016. Nellie was providing this DOJ person, Lisa Holton, the exact same opposition research that she was giving to her husband, Bruce, who was giving it to the FBI. So Nellie was directly feeding the State Department the same garbage that her husband was feeding to the FBI while she was working for Confusion GPS, who was being paid for by the rotten Reverend Clinton, who, as many of you know, I believe, was the mastermind behind this plot. And we'll find out what the Clinton's involvement was in the Epstein event before long, I do believe. The Epstein body, Jeffrey Epstein's body, has been claimed now by an unknown Epstein associate at the New York City Medical Examiner's office. Wonder who that is. Wonder who that is. He's got a brother, but it says here that it's an associate. I thought it would be a family member. I thought it would be his brother. He's the only one we ever hear about. But an Epstein associate. That's interesting, don't you think? Well, it looks like Joe Biden's campaign team has decided to reduce Joe Biden's appearances at public events. They're saying he needs to pace himself. I don't think so. And they say that in the evenings is when he appears to be making the most gas because he gets tired. I mean, this guy's got to go another 14 months just to get to the primary season to even start the general election. And once he gets there, he's going to be taking on Trump, who will be doing 3 to 4 campaign rallies a day. How in the world is Biden going to keep up? He's not. I don't think he's going to be the nominee. It will take practically a miracle for that to happen. I don't see it happening. I just don't. I think he's getting weaker and weaker by the day, and I think the rotten Reverend Clinton is like a vulture, is perched up there on the high wire, looking down, watching Joe basically collapse. And she may need to give him a little push, and she will be more than happy to do so. And she will get a lot of help. All she's got to do is pick up that phone and call Maggie. Pick up the phone and call Maggie. She'll put out the word, and they will crush Biden. It'll be done in a week. It's coming. Just keep watching. Well, it looks like in August of 2018, FBI agents went to Hillary's lawyer's office in the District of Criminals to see 6 laptop computers that contained Hillary's emails when she was Secretary of State. The FBI agents were told to take a hike, and they did. Hillary's lawyers declined to provide consent to the FBI to look at the laptops, let alone seize them. And even though the Hillary's attorneys lacked the authorization to handle the material on Clinton's laptops, which included secret information, the FBI just simply said, okay, well, thanks anyway. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And what did they want to do? They didn't want to take those 6 laptops because they wanted to try to find something to incriminate the Reverend. No. They wanted to get a hold of them so they could protect her. They wanted to get those laptops so that they could place them under lock and key or destroy them That's what they wanted the laptops for, not to get Hillary, but to keep anyone else from getting what was on those laptops. And we know that Grassley, Nunes, and Bob Goodlatte tried to get access to these laptops back in October of 2016. They sent a letter to Attorney General Get Back Loretta Lynch for the request, but she denied that request. But now we have Ty Clevenger, Ed Butowski's lawyer, has received documents that show all of this. And that is as a result of the FOIA request that he did regarding the current lawsuit that he's involved in. These new documents prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the FBI and the DOJ took extraordinary measures to cover up and exonerate Hillary's email crimes. And if you go over to Clevenger's website, you will see where he lays out everything that's discovered in these documents, and you will not believe. You will not believe. Unfortunately, I do not have time to go through it because it's very complex and there's quite a bit. It's a long list of individual things and actions that they took. And when you look at it, it's just absolutely, it's hard to believe. It really is. I mean, the corruption, I mean, it's just, you know, there's always been corruption in our government. You know, we know there's a lot of corruption going on in the 60s. We know there was a lot of corruption going on in the 70s, certainly during the Slick Willie administration. But I have to say that under the 8 years of Obama, literally the corruption that was taking place across all branches of the government, all the way to from the DOD, the State Department, you know, the IRS, you know, you name it. I mean, the Obama administration just corrupted every single bureaucracy within the damn government, and that's a lot. Absolutely, completely corrupted. Just unbelievable. John Frye, he's the IRS analyst who has pled guilty to leaking Michael Cohen's bank records to Michael Avenatti, the creepy porn lawyer, and also to the New Yorker. He is now facing up to 5 years in jail and a $250,000 fine after pleading guilty. We will see what kind of sentence he gets. We'll be watching very closely to see how that works out. And speaking of which, they need to go back and take another look at Lois Lerner and a couple of those people on John McCain's staff who were working with Lois Lerner and one of her lieutenants. They were all involved in the illegal activities that took place to take down these and destroy these Tea Party activists. Need to get back on that. Fox News is reporting that the Inspector General, the intelligence community Inspector General, was so concerned about the Chinese accessing the Rotten Reverend Clinton's private server that they immediately drove over to the FBI main branch to inform agents of their discovery. The agents that were informed, the FBI agents that were informed of the breach included Peters Ben Strokenas. The Inspector General of the Intelligence Community agents, McMillan and Rucker, said that Peters Ben Strokenas and other FBI agents during the 1 hour meeting sat poker-faced while they were briefed, and they asked very few questions. In fact, they seemed aloof and dismissive. Of course, we know that the notes from the meeting are missing. And why are they missing? Because the CD that they were on was damaged. Damaging a CD to the point where you cannot get the information off of it, it's got to be damaged pretty bad, like cracked, completely broken, and like a lot of small pieces or something. Very difficult to believe, but this is, a lot of people have been trying to get that information, and this is what they've been told. And multiple people, Judicial Watch, the Congress, various people have tried to subpoena this information, and this is what we're told, that the notes from that meeting are missing, and it's a result of the fact that those notes are on a CD which is damaged. We also learned that Michael Horowitz, the Huckleberry Horowitz, the Inspector General, was also briefed about the breach of the Rotten Reverend Clinton server by the Chinese, and we haven't heard anything from Horowitz, and never did hear anything about Horowitz from that. We also know that the State Department downgraded the classified material on the Rotten Reverend Clinton server to protect her from further investigation and to make the emails exempt from FOIA requests. Not only that, but I remember, because this is not the first time we've talked about this, also I remember, in addition to that, they first pushed back and tried to push back against the intelligence community inspector general and tried to, block them, tried to discourage them from looking into it, but they kept pushing. And as they kept pushing, that's when the State Department took this various actions to downgrade the classified material and then to put it into some sort of a status where it couldn't be accessed by Congress or anyone doing a FOIA. Running defense for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Well, up there in the Great White North, we have Justin Trudeau, who's been found guilty of violating his oath of office. He broke the law by using his office to influence and pressure the Canadian Attorney General to drop criminal charges against a political ally and big donor. Of course, the Canadian state-run media, by the way, a lot of you know, we have a lot of fake news here, and the media is absolutely horrible here. I mean, absolutely horrible. But to be honest with you, in Canada, they actually have state-run media up in Canada. Straight up state-run media up in Canada. And they, of course, they are running defense for Trudeau. So you can expect that there will be no action taken against Trudeau. None at all. In fact, he's not even really admitting he did anything wrong. In fact, quite the contrary. So he's arrogant, and he knows he's being protected by the deep state in Canada. Yes, Canada has a deep state as well. And their media is literally state-run media. So here's a story that I wasn't able to get to yesterday, that we'll get to now, and that is that the Google insider that spoke to Project Veritas has now gone public and has released hundreds of documents that reveal unbelievable corruption at Google regarding their censorship tactics. Google had a blacklist, and hundreds of conservative websites and YouTube channels are on it, likely even mine. So I am waiting to see the list to see if my name is on it. I know Styx Hexenhammer is on it. The insider is named Zachary Voorhees. He has sent the documents to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division. The documents show how Google manipulates algorithms to censor certain words, phrases, and contexts to promote, alter, reference, or manipulate perceptions of internet content. There should be huge FEC fines. And very likely, there could be massive civil lawsuits. Massive civil lawsuits. If I see my name on that list, I'm going to take a look at that agreement I have with YouTube to see if they violated my rights. Could be massive class action lawsuits. This is going to be quite explosive because there are going to be more. This guy says there are other Google engineers who know the same and have probably even worse damaging information. I honestly believe for the first time we are going to see some pretty heavy stuff raining down on Google. They have had their people go testify to Congress. They have lied to the Congress. They have played the game. We all know what's going on. It's been going on too long. Now that the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice is the people looking at this, that tells you a lot. And you know, I believed for a long time that Google is essentially a public utility and should be treated as such. I would be okay for them being as large as they are. I'd tolerate it if they would behave. As many of you know, I don't like government regulation. My preference would be that there be a Bill of Rights for the internet that these big service providers have to adhere to. And if they violate it, they would be open to civil lawsuits. That would probably solve the problem. But I don't hear anybody on the government side of things suggesting something like that. So something has to be done, because it's starting to get to the point where it's getting dangerous. Another agency of the DOJ is looking into Google's relationship with China, and particularly how Google is working with essentially the Chinese government and their military, and essentially providing services to Chinese military that they shouldn't be providing. So it's starting to get into some other things, and there is no doubt that it's time to blow the whistle on Google and to do something. Something has to be done. This cannot continue. It's been out of control for a long time. And so I'm glad that Trump, the DOJ, is finally looking into it. The DOJ is looking into a lot of things. They got a lot of things going on. The problem is I really don't trust most of the people at the DOJ. I don't trust the FBI. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about Barr. My gut tells me he's straight. Mr. Durham is probably straight, but you know, all these other people that they've got working with them from the FBI, I don't know who these people are. But my confidence and my trust in the FBI, Department of Justice, is at probably around 0%. 0%. And I gave up on the intelligence agencies a long, long time ago. A long time ago. I've been watching this stuff for so many years that I guess I have a different perspective on it than a lot of people. I must be very patient. I don't know. As I've mentioned before, back in the, I guess it was very late 80s and early to mid 90s, I used to write these booklets, which I would sell in the classified section of magazines. And they were books on the term back then was secret government. Now we use the term deep state. But back then it was called the secret government. And I wrote various of these little booklets that I would go have printed up. I'd type them out on a word processor, and then I would print them, take them to a printer, have them printed, and little binders on them, and then I would sell them through mail order, just advertise in classified magazines through classified ads, and then I would sell these books. And I sold thousands of these little books. I would advertise in various types of magazines, and a lot of hunting magazines, gun magazines, other types of magazines, biker magazines, even like Mad magazine. I would advertise in various places, and mostly I would write these books on crazy CIA operations, just a lot of stuff dealing with intelligence agencies and secret government operations, and mostly it was about the secret government stuff. And one of my most popular booklets, and I actually still have a lot of these things, are on floppy disk. I have a little thing over here in my office in one of my drawers that's got all these little floppy disks, and all these little floppy disks were the floppy disks that I was using at the time when I was writing these little booklets. And there was one booklet that I wrote that was something to do with something I called the two-headed monster, and I was talking about what we needed to do to rescue ourselves from the secret government. And I was suggesting that the two things that we really needed to do, and the two heads of this monster, were were the two things that really gave birth to this two-headed monster. Was the signing of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, and of course this created the Federal Reserve, fractional reserve banking, and this really, I think, is one of the major features and one of the most empowering tools that the deep state has, is the Federal Reserve, the fractional reserve banking and all this. It gives them tremendous power because it allows them to control the money supply. They control the supply of money and where the money goes. That gives them tremendous power. And so my first point was that the Federal Reserve Act needed to be repealed, and that we needed to go back to printing actual U.S. dollars. There are actually, my dad's had some, my mom has them now. They're actually, they don't say, if you look at these bills he's got, they don't say Federal Reserve note. They actually say U.S. dollar. So we used to have U.S. dollars, and we need to get back to that. I think we need to set up a Bank of the United States. I think we need to allow states to open charter banks in every state, and we need to go back to having U.S. dollars, get away from the Federal Reserve notes, fractional reserve banking, fiat money, and the Federal Reserve Act needs to be repealed. That would be one big head of the monster. The other head of the monster was in the signing of the National Security Act in 1947 by Harry Truman. After signing the National Security Act, he said, of course, he was duped and wished he'd never have done it. The National Security Act of 1947 created essentially the CIA, the NSA, and all the other spy agencies. And they have, over the years, as we can see, they have grossly abused their power. They have tremendous, huge budgets, like $50 billion a year, somewhere in that range. And we can see that the damage that they do. I'm not sure what good they ever have done. I think they've done a lot more harm than good. And I do think that these are two major features of the deep state. The Federal Reserve and the secret intelligence agencies, which have not served us very well either, and I think both should be abolished. I would now include into that the FBI. I think that they need to be completely abolished, and if we do have to have some sort of a federal law enforcement, we should start over from the ground up, hire all new people, come up with completely new standards, and we actually need to hold people accountable when they do pull the type of shenanigans that we have seen over these many decades, going all the way back to Hoover, which is the beginning. It's always been corrupt. But as I've mentioned before, as I sit here today, I see that it's more than just the Federal Reserve and the secret government, the intelligence agencies. It's also, as you look at it now, we also need to take a serious look at our educational system. Obviously, it's been infiltrated by communists. It's been going on for a very, very long time, and we need to clean out America's colleges and universities and get the commies out. They're destroying the country by destroying the country's youth. So that's another facet that we need to take a look at. And of course, the bureaucracies. They've certainly gotten control of the bureaucracies, and look how the bureaucracies are fighting against Barr, fighting against the president, fighting against Congress. They essentially have become more powerful than the elected government, and they need to go as well. They need a serious downsizing, and we need to restructure and reorganize in such a way that we can start firing these corrupt people and holding them accountable. And finally, we have two other things that we need to look at very, very hard. One is, of course, the media, which has gone completely rogue, and they had a very important role to play in our system of government, and they have failed miserably. And now they are the enemy. They've joined the deep state. They are part of the deep state. And of course, finally, we have the courts. They have also become completely corrupted as well. So there we have it. Those are all the facets of the deep state, or what we used to call back in the day the secret government, that we need to address. I think Trump is trying to do that. Barr, I hope, is trying to do that. But it's a big fight. We are winning, but man, oh man, it's a tough slog, as they like to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.